everybody. Welcome to WD Carousel of Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And today, Crystal is being really odd. Don't mind her.
It's all good. It's
90s Music Theory 101.
Yep.
If you follow us on Patreon or if you join our Patreon, you might
hear some
hear
stuff.
what's going on.
Just know that
scenes.
it had nothing to do with Disney, so that's why it's on Patreon. Anyway, so today
we are going to revisit a ride. It is a popular ride. We haven't done one of these in a long time.
Yeah, like a ride deep dive.
It's one of the first things that we did with our channel, and we had covered the Haunted Mansion. Mm-hmm. We had covered Spaceship Earth.
Yep.
And I think those are the only two existing rides.
And Pirates.
Oh, Pirates, yes.
Pirates, yeah. And then we've done a similar thing, but with rides that no longer exist, and I love those. Those are really fun. But,
and we will get back to them.
Yes.
Because there are plenty to cover. But today we decided we would go with another Disney classic ride that can be found in 5 different parks.
Yes.
We are talking about
Space Mountain.
Yes. Not to be confused with Mission Space or Spaceship Earth.
Right. So just
Space.
I was doing that while writing notes. It was getting tough.
Space.
But
it's a mountain.
Yes. Not a spaceship. It's just space, and it's not a mission.
Well, it depends. It depends.
I know.
Because there are the theories that go on between all of them that they are interconnected through storyline, as well as if you look at the advertisements-y things inside the queues, you're going to see Spaceport 75 and then Space Station 77.
Yep.
Both of them
for the U.S.
for
parks.
Disney World as well as Disneyland in that order for when they were opened the year of, but yeah, you'll hear us say space a lot this episode.
And we're gonna try to say the correct ride name the entire time.
Yes.
That is the goal.
But we don't have it actually written down in front of us.
No.
We have our notes.
Right.
And our general antics.
Right.
But
right. Oh, it is written up there.
Oh, you did. Oh,
I did
yes,
right
but
up there. We're not gonna watch it anyway. This is beside the point. So let's start from the beginning, which is a pretty good place to start.
Yes, it's always helpful to start in the beginning of the story.
Yes, of the story. Yeah. Well, unless you're Emperor's New Groove
Moving
or something.
on.
Okay.
Moving on.
You can't just lay that at me and let me. Okay. Anyway, so.
Do I need to get you a red Sharpie and have a pull down film?
Yes, I think so, actually. So the interesting thing about Space Mountain is you can't talk about Space Mountain without first talking about the Matterhorn bobsleds.
Correct.
Which were at the very end of the 1950s, 1959, I believe. I don't have that number in front of me.
We haven't done that episode yet. I haven't done the research.
Yeah, me either. So I believe it was 1959. They released the Matterhorn bobsleds, which was a huge deal for a couple of reasons. One of them being...
And for the people who don't know, this is found in Disneyland.
And not at all in Disney World.
Which makes sense because Disney World wasn't open then, but still moving on.
But there's all sorts of stuff
Context.
there. But yes, exactly. But so the bobsleds were really unique because they were one of the very first steel roller coasters made by, I believe, Arrow.
Yes.
In collaboration with WED. So...
Or as we know it now, Imagineering.
Imagineering, yes. And so it was wildly popular, and it was one of the very first thrill rides that Disney had in any of the parks ever. Mm-hmm. So it was wild success.
The only park.
So
it would be the
very
only
first thrill ride
park to have an option.
But was I wrong technically? I just say I wasn't wrong. It wasn't the whole story. Anyway, So the cool thing though is they really liked the concept, and it proved to Walt that it was a thing that people wanted in the parks. Mm-hmm. So when the Florida project started, that was something that they had thought about, but before that even was for a Tomorrowland expansion.
Correct.
So for Tomorrowland, they wanted to have a multi-track system.
And in fact, they even wanted to have a separate building that had multiple things inside of the building as well. So it was not going to be just the roller coaster as we know it. Think more like Disneyland or Disney Tokyo. where I think it's in Disney Sea, where they have a separate building that you walk in, and like under the sea with The Little Mermaid has a number of different attractions inside there.
Yeah.
But this was the concept that they were going to try and go for the original revamp to Tomorrowland, and they were looking at this about 1965.
I think it was 4, yeah.
Pretty close to the decade, and half decade,
yeah.
And they realized that Tomorrowland already needed a revamp or an update because it was already starting to look dated. And that's the problem when you are trying to have exhibits that are supposed to depict the future comes. Right. And it's either correct or it's not.
Right, and they had just entered the jet age, or the space age, so everything was just completely changing around, and so they were going to do this big, they were going to call it Spaceport, instead of like a Space Mountain. But anyway, so they had this concept. It was huge. It kept getting refined and changed around with lots of, lightning and star projectors and dark roller coaster. That really started to come through right away. But they kept coming back to it and saying, and they were working with Arrow, the engineering firm and everything, and they were just like, this can't be done in the way we want it to be. This can't be done the way we want it to be.
Especially since they were wanting to try a new technique, and that was by using the computers to be able to control and operate the rides, so that way there was a level of safety there. At that point in time, though, technology had been doubling within a year span. Right. So one thing that they decided to do was postpone this until the technology caught up.
And it would basically allow, and there was a very rudimentary version of this type of safety system that we'll get into a little bit later in the bobsleds as well, but it was much more rudimentary. But it would basically allow only one car to be on a certain part of track.
Again, we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that in a little bit. But so they kept putting that off because they wanted to have this high throughput, high safety system that just couldn't exist yet. So
be the first ones for being able to use a computer system.
Right.
And then Walt died.
Which is a real bummer. And so they kind of had to think about it. So at this point, they kind of even put it farther out of sight because they were really starting to focus on the Florida project. So after Walt died, that kind of became a big thing for a lot of the Imagineers. They wanted to get the Florida project together, and they were going to name it Walt Disney World, and it was this kind of big thing. And so they were originally going to put a Matterhorn. I keep doing that. They're going to put a Matterhorn in where in Fantasyland was the original plan, because they wanted to have a thrill ride on opening day.
Yep.
But as they kept working on it and kept looking at it, they realized that it just thematically didn't make any sense.
No. And for those of you who have been in the Magic Kingdom recently, with the updates to Magic Kingdom, it would be a little bit more appropriate now. But during the opening day of Walt Disney World, it was definitely more fairy tale-esque.
Yeah.
Less accurate to the world around you.
Right. At this point in time, they could have gotten away with it. And in fact, they did with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
Yes, so that's... we've already, I think it's mentioned before that's kind of our Matterhorn.
Come around full circle. But
moving on.
Regardless, they realized that it wasn't going to work at the time. It was much more like a medieval fair, and it wasn't going to happen. So at this point, they were wondering, well, what can we do? And suddenly somebody was like, hey, we have this project, the Spaceport Space Mountain project. Want to try it?
Well, it was Spaceport then, but then Disney World was deciding to take a mountain direction with everything. That's where they had Splash Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain. And so then they decided to retitle it and called it Space Mountain. And they took away the extra stuff that was inside the building and decided to focus on just the roller coaster. They also streamlined it so it was all interior. The original sketches had you looping back outside and then coming back into the building.
Right.
And they decided to keep it a full dark ride, which is the layout as we know it now.
Right. And so the attraction then opened in, I believe, 1975 in Walt Disney World. And some people, probably not seasoned Disney people, but some people would assume that a classic Tomorrowland attraction would have opened in Disneyland first, but it did not. It opened in Walt Disney World first, and it was, I think, a year later.
77.
So 3 years later. 2 years later. Math. That it opened in Disneyland in the Disneyland Tomorrowland renovation. So those two versions are almost identical, and I think we can...
There are a couple differences, especially after they remodeled the one in Disneyland.
Right.
If you go there now, you'll see that they're in Disney World has only one person per seat versus Disneyland where you have two people sitting side by side. The original Walt Disney World rockets actually had two people almost sitting on top of each other and then two people sitting behind you in one seat
now
with a seatbelt.
Oh, side by side?
No, on top of each other. Like you would almost climb on my lap.
That's how Florida still is.
Well, now they have the lap bars with the 3.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see.
Yes,
okay.
because there were only 2 areas for seats, technically, before, but then they'd shove 2 people in, so you had to either be really comfortable with strangers, or else only take the people that you know.
Right.
Because you're basically going to have another person either in between your legs or sitting on top of your lap.
Right.
And then be strapped down by the seatbelt.
That's funny.
And then they revamped it, so now it's the individual seats. 3 seats per
3 seats per car, which is an interesting style. Your feet kind of go, and this is true at Disney World. Mm-hmm. I don't know that the Disneyland version does it the same way. I think that might be
also since they've revamped it, it's not as shaky or anything. So the Walt Disney World you're gonna get the feeling a lot like the Matterhorn.
Yeah, it feels the technology is very similar, and you can feel it. I need to take some leave after I get off of it.
They don't recommend going on it if you have back problems, neck problems, body problems, and pregnant. Don't do it.
It's low. The seat is fairly comfortable, but it sits very low on your back. It's just, it doesn't give, like most roller coasters used to giving support all the way up to your head, and it doesn't do that. So it's something to be aware of. It's jerky. It's a what do they call it, Mighty Mouse or a Crazy Mouse or whatever, that kind of where it turns back and forth and switchbacks, and you've got no upper body support. So it's just something to be aware of. And so, should we just talk about the ride experience? Let's just jump right into it. Yeah, and then we can go from there and talk about the technical thing. The ride experience is, very much, classic roller coaster.
Disclosure, Crystal's never been on it because she's afraid of roller coasters. So this is the Ian exclusive.
Ian exclusive.
There was a wink there for the people listening at home.
Yeah, it was a little. You could almost hear it, kind of the little wink noise. But moving on, yeah. So the ride experience, and I've only done the Magic Kingdom version, so that's something to be aware of as well. They're all a little bit different, and that's continued to happen more and more as time goes on. But we'll get there. The way that it works is, you go in and they theme the whole building out inside like a spaceport, like very future from the perspective of the 70s, like what a spaceport would look like. So
my favorite.
All of the ceilings have like stars, like you're looking through a window out into the stars, and you'll see like every now and then like a shooting star going by, or they have little miniatures that they've gotten there.
Crystal's historical research said at one point in time that was actually a glass window that you could see the ride through, and so you'd see the headlights of the ride going by.
And you can, I think in some places that's still true.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's still true. There's a couple of points where you look and it's like really, they make it really distorted though. But you can see like a little whoop, like a little like blip of a car going by. So it's pretty cool, and that might have changed because that ride is going through some heavy modifications in Florida right now. But that's how it used to be, as I remember it. And you would go through and line up to, they had like the Alpha and the Omega launch bays. And so that was where you would get on for each side.
Now those are both identical tracks, just mirrored.
Mirrored to each other. And so the theory being that they have the same amount of twists, turns, and dips as each other, but not the same order, essentially. Sort of, it just feels a little different. But so you get in, and it's you go up this like launch tube. It's not a launch, it's just a lift hill. It's very simple, but you go up and it's got like the flashing, like super cheesy, bad pre-Star Wars kind of like it like basically that. And then you get up to the top of that and start moving, and that's when the camera takes a picture of you, by the way.
Oh,
it's before you even go down, so it's really nice because you can
do. Good to know for the people at home.
It's like right
is
before
it to the left
ride.
Or to the right?
It is to the left.
We're gonna say that, but we don't know what side you're gonna be on.
Right, and I can't remember. I think I've only been on Alpha or maybe Omega once. So anyway, the idea being that I did that again. The whole idea.
Stop
I know.
Hitting your
I
microphone.
keep hitting my microphone, guys. I'm so sorry. But the whole idea being that, we've a couple of times when we went with a couple of friends, you could sit there. We did like the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil thing. Because it's like not that intense when you're at the thing. So just a little fun fact for everyone who's interested. But at that point, you are plunged down in kind of it's pretty much a gentle downhill. There's never like any sharp dips because it has to maintain that energy to keep you going back and forth. So it's probably like a 2-minute ride. I think I could be wrong, but it feels significant. It feels like you're in there for a while, and it doesn't help that it's totally dark.
Which makes it a little bit more intense for people. Yes. And it's not totally dark. There are stars sparkled throughout.
Yes, and it is interesting because you get this feeling of like, so they've got the star projectors everywhere, so you feel this kind of these little dots of light moving past you. But it also gives you the sense of like there's this like immense infrastructure around you, and I always was terrified to like lift my arms up or anything because you feel like you're gonna hit something. And I know that like that doesn't happen. I'm not even that tall. Like it wouldn't happen. But it does feel very like nerve-wracking because it feels like there's like lots of steel and structure around you, which there is. But anyway, so that's kind of fun. So you're going through and you get this sense of dramatic movement. It feels like you're going really fast and you're hitting these sharp turns. You're moving back and forth. There's a couple little dips. It feels very intense because you can't see it coming.
Yeah. You're only going at about 35 miles an hour.
I think it's even less than that, isn't it?
No, it's 35.
Is it 35? Okay.
Research Crystal says.
Research Crystal says.
Not actually experience, Crystal says.
Right.
But the ride seems more intense due to the deprivation going on with the lack of light around you and the sound all over. And
there's lots of very spacey wacy noises coming around at you from all sorts of different directions. They've actually added it into the car later on. They did some of that. It's become a very kind of both sensory deprivating and also adding weird stimuli in funny places to make you hear things more acutely and aware of things more acutely. Anyway, so it's about 2 minutes of that where you're kind of going down this dark area with lots of sharp turns.
Slight drop, turn, slight drop.
Yeah, and a couple of times there's a couple of drops that kind of surprise you toward the end where you're just like, whoa, but they're not that big. You can't see them.
Are they like a little bunny hill, just a whoop?
Yep.
Whoop?
Yeah, like they're little dips where it's just kind of designed to make you feel a little light for a second and then it stops. It's just it's all very tame actually. It's just that you can't brace for it because you can't see it and you have no upper back support. So it's designed to kind of throw you around a little bit. That's kind of the nature of the ride. But it's very very jerky and very, very aggressive.
Very classic Disney.
Very classic Disney. Right.
So about the safety measures inside, this is one of the innovators when it came to creating multiple cars being allowed on the track at one time, as well as being able to have it computer controlled and monitored. Whereas before, if it was run by a cast member, they wouldn't actually know per se where a car was on the track or if they had stopped because they had an issue or something and could go ahead and send off another car thinking that they'd give them enough time. And this will monitor speeds, this will monitor where cars are, and it's really a system that is now prevalent in all attractions.
Widely adopted in steel coasters, and it's interesting. So the system is kind of actually brutally simple. Like, and you think about it today, it seems obvious, but basically what they do is they break the tracks up into segments or blocks. And so basically what happens is the blocks can be different sizes. They're typically designed to be so these blocks have a braking section at the beginning and the end of each one. And only one car can be in any block at any one time. So it makes it really easy to be like, at the control station, they're like, we have to have 3 blocks between each active car. That's how we want to have it set up. And that way, you know every car is because you know what block it's on, and it can also use that to track speed. So the cool thing is, let's say a car is traveling a little bit faster than it should.
It's got a little bit more hefty weight.
A little hefty, like I'm just in there and it's moving a little quick, you know?
Just in there?
I'm just in there. It's moving pretty fast because, anyway, but it's going a little bit quick, and the computer, which was new at the time, this didn't need intervention from a cast member. The computer would actually see that it was going too fast, and it would actually
brake it
a little bit. It would just grab the brakes for a second as it hit the next brake point, the next block, and then it would slow down a little bit and try to keep it in line with everything else. And having this kind of control would allow cars to be able to be occupying the run at the same time. And I don't remember the exact number of cars they can run at a time.
I think I don't know. This is just this is old research, Crystal Brain. I think I saw at one point in time in a YouTube video, so take that with a grain of salt.
Sure, yeah.
About 4 or 5 cars are normally on the tracks running while one is loading.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive, and so so it offers a lot of efficiency. You can, like, previous to this, you would have like a wooden coaster, for example. It would come to the station, you'd load it, it would run, it'd come back to the station, you'd unload it, you'd load it. Well, at Disney, you've got somebody loading, 4 cars on the track, one unloading, and they can just keep shifting. So it really creates a lot of...
and then put the 2 tracks in there.
Yeah.
So you're getting twice the amount of possible transportation. This was a good option, kind of like the Omnimover is, where it's just constantly loading and unloading people. This is a roller coaster version of that, because you can't really do a roller coaster for an Omnimover.
Right. Correct. You heard it here
Don't
first.
Don't do it.
Don't try
unloading and loading would be horrendous.
It would not work well. Yeah, no, that would be...
But it's a people eater, which is good, because normal wait times are pretty excessive still with this ride, even though it has been around for quite a while.
Yes. And there has been occasional problems with the system. The system is designed to fail safe. So if for some reason the computer is unable to determine where things are, and it falls into a failure state, like it notices something a little hinky with whatever's going on, it just locks all the blocks.
Yep.
So the blocks just default to be, and I think if there's a loss of power, the blocks default to on.
Yep.
So everything just locks down, and then when your car hits the next block point, it'll just stop. And so you'll stop somewhere on the track, and all those break points, all the block points have stairs.
Yes.
So basically, there's like a little station there, and you might even feel it as you're going by, that there's a little structure there. Yeah, a little structure on one side. Exactly. And that is the structure that could evacuate you. So that's when people say that they were in Space Mountain with the lights on, it's usually because there was a technical fault and the system crashes and everyone stops, and then they have to get everyone off the thing, or they sometimes will have a cast member just run up and fix it and push your train. That's the other option. Is you'll just be sitting there and all of a sudden the lights will come on. You'll see some cast member run up the thing and just push you on your merry way. So that can happen too. But that's the blocking system, and it overall it has been one of the most successful, roller coaster technologies in terms of getting people on faster.
Which is why this became almost an industry standard, if not an industry standard.
I think it is definitely, for most modern, especially steel coasters, for sure is industry standard.
This is also a unique ride, though, where someone who does not do many roller coasters, pointing at myself here, is able to still be able to experience it slightly. So on the Tomorrowland Transit Authority, the People Mover, it does, through its circle through Tomorrowland, bring you into the building for Space Mountain, and you're able to see that launch area where you have the space shuttle with the upside down spacemen.
Yep.
And then it drives you around, and if it's running like it should be, you're able to see a black hole where this roller coaster is. If it's running with the lights on, then you can see the full infrastructure of the coaster, which I've seen video of.
Yeah, and check that out. It's fascinating.
It is amazingly complicated looking, but I guess incredibly simple. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a ride creator, but you're able to still get a little bit of the experience of seeing like the stars and some of the music, and see some of the show pieces and all of that.
It's an absolute classic for sure.
So if you're not sure if you want to go on the ride, try the People Mover, see how you feel about it.
Yeah, what it looks like in there, and if you'd feel comfortable going 35 miles an hour on a roller coaster you can't see in there. It's I would say the ride itself is fairly tame in what it does. It's just that you can't see it and you're not well braced. These are the things that I would just point out if you're not sure. Those are the things to be aware of.
Yes. So there are some changes that have happened to it just due to sponsorship. In the beginning, it was sponsored by RCA, so they had like the little puppy with the what megaphone scope thing, and
Victor,
so he was in Flying Saucer, and
Classic.
they had things that were focused towards RCA, which was entertainment equipment at that point in time,
right?
And that was done at about 93. Then FedEx took over, and the show scenes changed more to transport in between galaxies, so they were trying to transport packages with
galactic
lasers.
Logistics. Ooh.
And that was up in 2004, and it's been sitting unsponsored ever since.
Wow.
So a lot of the pre-show and post-show scenes have changed.
Okay.
And
Yes. Yeah. And that brings up an interesting point. So at the end of the ride, the Magic Kingdom ride, you go through this crazy like omnimover, like when the moving walkway kind of things you see in an airport, and you get on it and it takes you like down and then back up.
They got rid of those.
And apparently they got rid of them. I have not been there since they've removed it. I've been there while it was under heavy construction, so I didn't go through that area of the ride.
Yeah,
which,
they got rid of those.
Around the back.
So it's all just manual walking now the whole way.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a bummer, but it used to be you'd go through that and then you'd see these scenes. And when we started doing our bit on Horizons, how many months ago it was, I remember being like, well, this is awfully familiar, and I couldn't quite place where I had seen that stuff before. But it turns out it was from those scenes at the end when you get off the ride, all the scenes from the end of Horizons, which I'll link up there somewhere, if you're watching on YouTube. They
took inspiration and took some of the pieces from the closed ride, but the Imagineers that originally worked on Space Mountain also worked on Horizons. So there was a lot of the same creativity team and a lot of the same inspirations for the vignettes and the show scenes in the pre-show and the post-show. So it had a really similar feel. It made sense then when Horizons would close to move some of that over to Space Mountain where it fit.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely, everything that was there felt very much in character with the Horizons kind of motif. It really followed the same concept. So,
but we don't know if that's still there with the newest renovation or not. I just know that the walkways, the moving walkways, are gone.
Right.
But we will be seeing that in the next month or so. So if you're interested, I mean, we might mention it. I can't guarantee it in a trip review or something like that.
Yeah.
But know that they used to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we talked about the standard Space Mountain and as we know it in Walt Disney World, but there are other themes and layovers that have happened as well in this park as well as the other Space Mountains around the world. So the next one, which I'm going to call the most fun one that actually happened in Disneyland Paris or EU Disney, Euro Disney. And this was one that was Jules Verne inspired. They did From Earth to the Moon. Is that what it is?
Yes. Earth to the Moon.
Yep, Earth to the Moon. And that existed for about 10 years where they actually put you in a rocket like in the little vignette clip that you can watch From Earth to Moon on Netflix. It's the silent movie one.
Yeah.
But they put you in a rocket and it's like you're being blasted off to the moon, but it had a lot of the steampunk feels to it.
Yeah.
And had that smiling face that you know from the clip and everything too.
Tony Baxter.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And that only lasted for about 10 years because then they wanted to open Disneyland or Disney Studios in Paris, and they decided, well, this Space Mountain version really helped revive the Euro Disney market because it was dying. It was dying so much that Eisner was threatening to leave it and just let it deal with its life.
Yeah, it was bad.
And so when the ride came up, it was doing amazing. It brought a lot of people to the parks, and they went, okay, we're going to create the second gate because we had promised when we opened this that we would have a second gate. And then to try and bring more people in, they updated, air quotations, the ride into a now Mission 2, which basically brought it from this amazing, unique awesome sort of steampunk
very
story,
Victorian.
and it actually gave a story to essentially standard Space Mountain.
Yeah, my understanding was the original Earth to the Moon used a lot of newer technology as well. They used like linear induction, so they did a little bit of launching instead of just a lift hill. Like there was a lot of really neat stuff they did. I think I left it,
and they had a lot of props inside there too. There's a lot of massive space. And when they moved to mission number 2, it changed from that to like projection visuals.
Gotcha.
And because the space was made to have stuff in it, it looks empty.
Yeah.
Instead of, feeling like the ride is complete, it just looks like they're putting a Band-Aid over it.
Right.
And so they're talking about redoing it, and we're all hoping that it will go back to From Earth to the Moon. Probably not, because Disney doesn't go back on rides. It only goes forward.
Right.
But that was one that was an amazing overlay.
Absolutely. Cool, yeah, and then there's also, I know we've got a bug in the studio space. It's fine. It's fine.
Kill it with fire.
So Tokyo and Hong Kong also both have mission spaces.
I think a standard version.
Fairly standard on both of them. Currently... and Shanghai does not have one. That is the only major property that does not have a mission space. Just fun fact.
Yep.
And so now in Disneyland, they currently have it as Hyperspace Mountain. And all I know about is it's Star Wars themed, and I don't know anything else about it because I've never ridden it.
Well, they again have the projection visuals going, so you're able to see planets and space ships from the movies. So you're talking TIE fighters, you're talking all of those guys, X-Wings,
right,
flying around you, so that way you can feel like you're part of the Star Wars universe.
Gotcha.
But this happened well before the acquisition, before the new movies came out, and by the new movies I'm talking about 7, 8, and 9. I'm not talking about 1, 2, and 3 because those don't exist. But this is one where it's basically, in Disneyland, you're going to end up with either the Star Wars theme through Hyperspace Mountain or their Halloween theme. And their Halloween theme
is dependent on the location, right?
Well, I'm talking about Disneyland. I was just talking about Disneyland. So Disneyland, that was the hint to get to the correct titling. That way I didn't get it wrong.
Oh, I see.
Was Ghost Galaxy. And Ghost Galaxy is actually, for a Halloween overlay, it's a really neat one. So they start you off where there are essentially these ghosts, these space ghosts coming after you. They have like this big one that's chasing you in the ride and everything, which is
like
super,
Alien.
Yeah, it's super neat. But then you're like, okay, well, what is an actual ghost in space?
Right.
It could be just another alien life form. It could just be another alien life form, though, that we're not familiar with.
Yeah.
But they have like this planet, and all of a sudden it goes toxic with all this, fun green, neon green.
This
as
is
you know,
exciting.
Disney loves neon green for evil.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Taking over like a cloud, taking over this planet and everything, and it's amazing. Versus the Walt Disney World overlay that just happened last year.
Last year, we went and I did the Walt Disney World their blackout version, and I tell you what, to be fair, I had a lot of fun. It was really fun, but it wasn't because it was a lot of effort on Disney's part, per my thought. So you get in and you get into the ride, and they've just turned everything off. So and they've added what appears to be a Rammstein soundtrack in the base of the thing. It was so weird. And you get into the ride and you go up, and all the launch tube lights are just shut off. Everything's shut off.
The stars are off.
You get up into the ride and you start going, and it is pitch black. And like, I knew, like, we had talked about it, I had read it, they're like, it's blacked out. I'm like, okay, sure, so it's darker. But like, when I say it's like blacked out, like, it's like the darkness is pressing on your eyes.
Do they still have the PhotoPass area with the flash?
They sure do.
Oh, well, that's fun.
I couldn't see anything. It was just a purple blur for the entire ride because it flashed me right at the very beginning. And then it was just...
And your eyes were so dilated already trying to catch any...
this purple halo over every... Yeah, it was awful. Yeah, so it was actually a lot of fun, but it certainly didn't have like this like great creative storytelling. It was literally just like, it's something that I would have done.
I'm gonna turn off the lights.
Yeah, like, I don't know if I had access to like, if I was in charge of like running Space Mountain and like I didn't have very much time to prep, that's probably what I would have done. Like, all right, just give me a sound system and turn off the lights. There we go. Got it. Like,
oh, no, I could totally see, like, the sound system going through my car in the late 90s, early 2000s, trying to find my favorite rock soundtrack, and then tossing that on, being like, yeah.
That was basically what it was. A lot of fun. It was just not very, let's say, creative, I guess. I guess is the issue there. But, yeah.
And as far as we are aware, those are the only overlays that have existed with the Space Mountains. Now, there might have been more. We haven't done a lot of research into the Tokyo and Hong Kong one, so check them out.
Understanding is that they are fairly similar. They follow the mold of the primary design, probably with some updated stuff. So there might be one of
not
them,
as shaky and janky of a ride.
That's part of the fun, though, and the back pain. But that's fine. It's all good. But yeah, so this has been a big one. But
and there have been a couple instances where there has been some injuries, but not anything due to a ride malfunction per se.
Yeah.
One lady was having some health issues, and they were supposed to take the car off to get her assistance, but another cast member didn't know and sent the car back through. And then so when she came out, she was semi-conscious,
and she ended up in a coma and died sometime later. But
not related to the ride.
Not related to the ride. It was I think there was a lawsuit against Disney, but they never proceeded.
They dropped it because it was due to health issues.
Right.
And then there was another one where a gentleman fell out of one of the rides, or one of the cars, but we think it might have just been he wasn't buckled in right.
He didn't actually use the restraint. Now,
I don't remember how long ago that was, though, either.
Yeah, because the restraints now, they kind of are very, like, you know, they check it. I mean, it's got the standard check thing before you go through it. So I don't really know how that happened, but it sounds like it was shut down in court because it never ended up being anything. And they actually brought in the ride vehicle in question to, like, investigate how it worked and everything. But
those are the only instances that we have found where there might have been a potential connection.
Yeah. But
so other than that, I mean, this is a super duper safe ride.
Yep, absolutely. So
just don't have a heart attack on it.
Please don't. That'd be sad. We don't want you to end up on the Wikipedia page.
On that note, this is the overall run of Space Mountain.
Yes.
It is one of your favorite rides.
It is one of my favorite rides. Yeah, this is by no means an exhaustive understanding of the ride and its history or anything, but we thought we would try to cover a bunch of it, and it'll probably pop up again.
Yeah, so this has been WD Carousel Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And we hope you have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Check out our Patreon.
Beautiful tomorrow, just a dream away.